Assassination of Ahwaz dissident leaders. In the shadows of Iran's relentless pursuit to silence dissent, a chilling pattern of targeted assassinations has unfolded over the years. Among the many communities that have borne the brunt of this state-sponsored terror, the Ahwazi Arabs stand out. Persecuted for decades and marginalized within their own homeland, Ahwazi leaders who dared to speak against the regime's oppression became marked targets, hunted down by the Iranian state's most ruthless operatives. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, with its vast network of intelligence operatives and assassins, orchestrated a series of cold-blooded assassinations of Ahwaz dissident leaders, both inside and outside Iran, leaving a trail of blood and fear in its wake. The Ahwazi Arabs, an ethnic minority living in the oil-rich Khuzestan province of southwestern Iran, have long been subjected to systemic discrimination, poverty, and repression. Their demands for cultural and political rights have been met with brutal crackdowns, mass arrests, and extrajudicial killings. But when prominent Ahwazi leaders fled Iran to seek refuge abroad and continued their fight for justice, the regime extended its iron grip beyond Iran's borders. For the IRGC, these leaders were not just dissidents. They were symbols of defiance who had to be eliminated. The assassinations of Ahwaz dissident leaders were not random acts of violence, but part of a calculated strategy by the IRGC and the Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS, to eradicate opposition. Each killing was carefully planned, sending a chilling message that no Ahwazi dissident was beyond the regime's reach. One of the most prominent victims of this campaign was Ahmad Mollah Nisi, the exiled leader of the Arab struggle movement for the liberation of Ahwaz, ASMLA, a group advocating for the autonomy of the Ahwazi people. Mollah Nisi had fled Iran to escape persecution, seeking refuge in the Netherlands where he continued to raise awareness about the plight of the Ahwazi Arabs. But the IRGC had other plans. On November 8, 2017, as Mollah Nisi returned home from a routine outing in The Hague, a gunman awaited him. Moments after he stepped out of his car, the assassin struck, firing multiple shots and killing Mollah Nisi on the spot. The attack was swift, professional, and carried out with precision, hallmarks of an IRGC coordinated operation. Dutch investigators quickly determined that the assassination was not the work of a random criminal, but a targeted hit, with links pointing back to Tehran. The murder of Mollah Nisi was not an isolated incident. It was part of a broader pattern of assassinations targeting Ahwazi dissident leaders across Europe and the Middle East. The IRGC, operating through a network of proxies, agents, and hired assassins, methodically pursued those who challenged the regime's authority. The killings served a dual purpose, eliminating voices of dissent while instilling fear within the wider Ahwazi community. In Denmark, another ASMLA leader narrowly escaped a similar fate when authorities foiled an Iranian plot to assassinate him in 2018. The plot, orchestrated by the IRGC's Quds Force, involved operatives who had been monitoring the target's movements for months. But Danish intelligence, acting on a tip, intervened just in time, preventing what could have been another high-profile assassination. The discovery of the plot sent shockwaves through Europe, prompting the European Union to impose new sanctions on Iran for its state-sponsored terrorism. For the IRGC, these assassinations were not just about silencing individuals. They were about maintaining control over the narrative. The Ahwazi Arabs, with their growing movement for autonomy and international recognition, posed a threat to the regime's carefully constructed image of unity and stability. By eliminating key figures in the movement, the IRGC hoped to decapitate the leadership and fragment the resistance. But the regime's campaign of terror only served to galvanize the Ahwazi cause. Each assassination ignited a renewed wave of determination among the Ahwazi diaspora and human rights activists who refused to be silenced. The murder of Mollah Nisi, in particular, became a rallying cry for Ahwazi activists, drawing international attention to the regime's brutal methods and the plight of the Ahwazi people. The international fallout from the assassinations was swift and severe. European governments, once hesitant to confront Iran over its human rights abuses, found themselves compelled to act. The revelations of Iranian-backed plots on European soil led to a diplomatic backlash, with several European nations recalling their ambassadors from Tehran and imposing sanctions on Iranian intelligence operatives. Yet, despite the international outcry, Iran's campaign of assassinations against Ahwazi dissident leaders has not ceased. The IRGC remains committed to its mission of eliminating threats to the regime, and its operatives continue to operate with impunity across the globe. The assassinations of Ahwaz dissident leaders serve as a grim reminder that Iran's war on dissent knows no borders, and that the IRGC's reach extends far beyond the confines of Iran. But while the assassinations have inflicted devastating losses on the Ahwazi community, they have failed to extinguish the flame of resistance. The voices of the Ahwazi people, though silenced in death, continue to echo through the actions of those who refuse to be intimidated. The fight for justice, autonomy, and dignity remains alive, fueled by the sacrifices of those who dared to speak out. In the end, the assassinations of Ahwaz dissident leaders may have been intended to instill fear and crush the spirit of resistance, but instead they have exposed the lengths to which the Iranian regime will go to maintain its grip on power, and they have shown the world that even in the face of death, the struggle for freedom cannot be extinguished.